was talking generalities on this one because I do not want to confuse the public. This bill before us, the author of it, I think, has worked well. This is not a restriction on critical race theory. It's not. And there's no attack on the sponsors of it. I think when this was originally filed, it shocked me. I think there's been a lot of work put into this. But I think it is really important to make sure that message is not sent to the public watching. I do not want the public to think that somehow we just limited that debate with this bill. And for that reason, I'm a no.
Any other member who is yet to be recognized to speak on the bill? Senator from Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak on the bill.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Many members probably don't realize, but I'm actually an education major. Secondary English education was my focus at the University of Kentucky, and so when we're talking about standards and curriculum, I think back on some of those classes and the conversations we had and the things I learned. But as you know, Mr. President, rather than following my mother and my sister, I followed my father and my other sister into the legal profession. And as an attorney, there's a rule, Rule 11. And Rule 11's a pretty simple rule, and it talks about when you're going to submit to the court, you're going to submit paperwork, pleadings, you name it, to the court, and you sign your name on that document, you're saying what I am submitting to the court is accurate. I fact-checked it. I'm making sure that any cases, any legal arguments that I'm presenting, making my arguments with, are valid. I'm making sure that that case law that I'm saying is valid case law is still valid case law. And if you violate Rule 11, there's sanctions, and it's a big deal. And, you know, so many of the arguments that I have heard today, I just scratch my head and I say, what bill are you looking at? Are we reading the same bill? And I heard the straw man, and I appreciate the, explanation and definition of a straw man, because I was thinking the exact same thing from this seat. You put this up and you shoot it down. Well, that's not what this bill is about. In my days as a prosecutor, we talked about how when the defendants were presenting their case, if the facts were on their side, they would pound the facts. But when the facts weren't on their side, they would pound the table. They would make a big showing, create a lot of drama, try to distract people, talk about anything but the facts. So I've heard a lot of debate today, but I haven't heard anyone tell me why the Mayflower Compact or the Declaration of Independence shouldn't be included in these standards. Go through the documents. What is wrong about these? I haven't heard that today. I've heard conversation about the need for more debate in other documents that should be taught in school, and that's fine. And as a parent, you can go to your school board, you can go to the teacher, you can weigh in, you can look at the agenda, or you can look at the syllabus at the beginning of the year and reach out to the teacher and say, hey, I'm glad to see that you're going to talk about the Gettysburg Address, but I'm just curious, have you ever considered this? Have you ever considered also teaching about this? And see what they have to say. But this bill, as we're talking about, doesn't prevent any of those conversations from happening. So, again, I just think some of the rhetoric and some of the accusations made against this bill are just, if not far-fetched, if not, I don't know, Mr. President. Like I said, Rule 11 strikes me because that's how far off they are. And I think that's, this chamber can do better than that. Let's argue this bill. If you have problems with the bill, let's argue the bill. But we don't need straw man arguments here. Thank you.
Any other members who have yet to be recognized? Having not come back, everyone had been recognized. Senator from Taylor has stood waiting for all persons to be recognized. I will come back to the senator from Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. President. patience is a virtue. As I've sat here and listened to my colleagues, both supportive and those in opposition, and how a difference a week makes since the Education Committee meeting. And there were not many questions. I think one was posed at a time when we've got many members that have said they would like changes made to the bill. I asked, where are floor amendments? I've asked, where are those members that have came to my office if they've had problems with the bill and certain portions of the bill? I will say, once this bill was filed and once it's been through the process, I've reached out to members of the minority party offering ideas, ways to work. They have been receptive. I also ask how many of our emails and messages have been about opposing the bill. Not as much as they were when the bill was originally filed, because the bill has been worked on. The bill has been revised. And to be very honest, I've had most members, maybe they won't say on the floor today or those walking in the hallway, thank you, because the bill, as it is, does allow teachers to teach. It allows controversial topics to still be taught. The core documents are primary sources. They're not textbooks, they're not lessons, they're not curriculum, and they are not opinions. It is aligning social study standards for middle and high school to be able to be achieved. So when I hear things that has been taught about of whitewashing and trying to get into curriculum, which we have strayed away from this bill, and I appreciate where we have started and where we are, with where we currently are with this bill, and I think where it's going. And about the Ashcroft Institute and comments that this was a right-wing organization, I will also say the Ashcroft Institute came up with their core documents of slavery and its consequences. Many of the documents in there that I put forth into those 24 core American documents to be used as well. I don't know where the bill will go from here in terms of the process. We do know there's other bills that have been filed that may go farther than what this bill goes to. But I feel like this bill has been worked, this bill has been listened to, this bill has been refined, and this bill will provide a core civics foundation for our teachers and for our students and our parents alike. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other member who is yet to be previously recognized? Senator from Jefferson 33.
Thank you, Mr. President. This has been an interesting discussion. And I do want to say that the Senator from Taylor was most gracious to me and others in seeking information. I must confirm that. And we had good conversations. And he's been open to me, and that's why I maintain my regard for him. I do want to make a few observations. Because if you look at this debate, or the discussion that's taking place here, it underscores the division in our country. And I think it's laudable that the senator from Taylor wants to do something to bring us together. But the fact of the matter is that we are divided on multiple levels, and we will not be, quote unquote, together as long as you have extreme haves and extreme have-nots, racism that permeates our society, sexism that has a history that I don't have to lay out here, we all know, homophobia that drives policy from this body. We're divided in this body. That's what we do in here. We deal with divisions all the time. My other observation is that it is a responsibility for us to do what my friend spoke of earlier about what we do with schools, etc. But the fact of the matter is we can't run them from here. It has to happen on the ground. And the fear is, and we see evidence of it, if you look at Florida, if you look in Virginia right now, this whole boogeyman, as the senator from Fayette 13 refers to, was a ruse. It lacked all kinds of integrity. It was designed to create a bait and switch so we could get into the education piece to litigate old issues that in some states have led to banning of books. It's extraordinary. So I think part of the discussion that you're hearing here that raises a question even about 138, which certainly is miles above House Bill 14, House Bill 18, and 483. I don't think they're the same thing. I would be dishonest if I stood here and said I thought they were the same thing. But the basic premise upon which we're having this discussion now really is a reaction to that piece that was started by radical conservatives that are litigating issues of the past. And those pasts are common to what we are living through right now: racism, sexism, homophobia, classism. So yes, we're divided, and I don't think it's going to be resolved here. I remember a senator in this body during a committee meeting said, you can't change people's minds by legislating. You can't change what's in their heart. And I agree with that. But I think we better be really careful about what we do up here when we start trying to dictate from here what happens on a local level in our educational process. We have good educators in the Commonwealth. I have nothing but praise for them. But when we say somebody shouldn't be required to have training, we merely have to look at the principal of some superintendent in Paducah, somebody in Paducah, who they discovered was wearing blackface, who says, oh, I made a problem in judgment. What's that about? We need training. We have racism that permeates our society. We should be proactive and preventive in this area. And then those of us who are leaders that are elected to come here, we need to pull our hands together and try to understand each other. I give the senator from Taylor credit for that. But I must say, the basic premise that initiated this, that came out of this national contrived effort to litigate the past by mischaracterizing what critical race theory is, which has nothing to do with the laws that have been at least put on the book. And I shouldn't say laws, the bills that have been put on the books, even in the General Assembly, is beneath us. So I just want to say this. We are a great country. And I heard that today. We're a great country. It's the greatest democracy in the world. All other democratic governments look to the United States of America for leadership. But we have division in the world, and we have a fool or two, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 fools in the world that do things because, as it was pointed out here, we are flawed. But in this mix, we are striving for a more perfect union, and we should not in any way project or put anything into action that allows people to misinterpret or interpret it in a way that we freeze our educational process, which needs to be robust, it needs to be structured, it needs to generate critical thinking, it needs to tell the truth about our history, and we shouldn't be afraid of it, because as a great nation with a great educational institution, we should not be afraid of that. That's beneath a great nation. So no, we're not perfect, and we're going to travel on this road a long time going forward, but I will say this. There is a concerted effort to censor certain aspects of the educational system in this country. There is discussion in the Commonwealth, and we see it reflected even to those who would like to make it policy, to dumb down our kids because they want them to be what somebody else wants them to be, as opposed to them being able to develop the critical thinking and be prepared for the future. So I think we ought to be careful about the potential for demeaning our educators, disrespecting and dumbing down the education of our children, the attempt to nullify history, the disrespect that's been perpetrated even in this body in a historical way when we set policy. So I'm in with this. I don't think this bill is going to determine the outcome of much. I think they're already doing a lot of the things that's been outlined here. I think we're going to do better going forward. I think we must come together here and give each other room. But I think ultimately we need to fight against the forces of reaction that this bill is reacting to what already has been generated at the other end of this hall. Thank you.
Purpose of question or discussion on the bill. Senator from Grayson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to speak on this bill.
Proceed.
First, I'd like to thank the Senator from Taylor for his effort. It's been heroic. It truly has been. And I don't think it's really been in reaction to anything other than parents' concern about the quality of their children's education. When we spoke about this summer in our interim session, we heard a very passionate plea from a mother who was a teacher, who said, quite simply, she did not want her children indoctrinated, she wanted her kids educated. And I think this is what this is attempting to do, try to put some guardrails on what's said in the classroom. You know, I grew up during the 60s in the country, and we learned things that truly were not easy to accept, knew they were painful for this country, recognized that they were wrong in so many regards. I think that's what education is about. But when you hear things like, people are saying this stuff doesn't exist, when you hear things like a college professor who says the Emancipation Proclamation was nothing more than a political ruse, that's not education. That's indoctrination. When you hear people say the Declaration of Independence was not to proclaim our freedom from Great Britain, it was to perpetuate slavery, that's not true. That's indoctrination. I think this is what this tries to attempt to put some guardrails on. It's not trying to hide our sins of our nation. We all know they're there. And yeah, the more we talk about them, the better we are as a nation. But to say that we don't have some people that are advocating for this in our education system, it's just not correct. We can show you volumes of examples of people who are teaching these things to our children, which just are not true. But I agree that probably what we do today is not going to make a monumental impact upon the situation at all. But at least it's an effort. But maybe if we really want to be extreme about this, maybe we just say all we're going to teach in history is the Declaration of Independence. And talk about that, how it was developed and what it's supposed to mean for our country. This is a great country. But I see too many people trying to divide it even today. Really, we have more in common that we want to acknowledge, but there's a lot of people that don't want to acknowledge that. And I'll give you one more example of a middle school teacher in my district who says, socialism's not all that bad. Is that education or is that indoctrination? Tell that to the people in Venezuela. So again, it's not trying to hide the sins of our nation or the painful lessons of our history. We do learn from those things. But there's got to be some guardrails that you just can't say whatever you want to in a classroom. You know, the fact that you have a college degree in education and in history does not give you an unfiltered license to say and do whatever you want to do. This is not censorship. It's teaching responsible history. So again, I commend the Senator from Taylor for trying to make this effort, and I'm not sure it will go either, but at least he's made that effort, and I think he should be commended for it. So thank you.
Any other members seeking recognition for the purpose of question or discussion? Senator from Marshall.
Speak on the bill, Mr. President.
Please proceed.
I want to compliment the Senator from Taylor on his efforts with this bill and to draw people together as much as he could. I think the reality of it is with this legislation that there were some folks that just crossed some lines in our classrooms. And our parents have a right to be upset when that happens because they do teach our kids the proper values, and it's their responsibility to do that. Does it happen in every family? No, it doesn't. But it's got to be a collaboration, and that's what we've got to get back to in our school systems and in every aspect of our society. We've got to get back to communicating and working together, and it's not any more important anywhere in this country than it is in the classrooms. And that's what we're trying to maintain with this bill, is to keep that dialogue and not to allow a few that have extreme ideas to indoctrinate our kids to something that maybe their families don't agree with. There's got to be that balance. And Mr. President, in just closing just quickly, the senator from Jefferson 33 made a comment about a man that I have enormous respect for, and that's the superintendent of the Paducah City School System, Dr. Donald Shively. In 2002, Dr. Shively was at a Halloween party, and his costume, he painted his face as a black man. It happened then. There was no discipline. 20 years later, he's being disciplined. He's on probation. But what the senator did not mention was the respect and the work that the man puts into making sure that his students succeed, especially his minority students. Paducah Tillman is a predominantly black high school. They are succeeding, the students there are succeeding like never before. Academically, athletically, they excel in every area. A new innovation hub, vocational center, has just been built on that campus because of Donald Shively's efforts. He is a good man. He is not a racist. He fights for his students, regardless of race. He is proud of the accomplishments of all of his students, especially the black students whose graduation rates are rising every year. And it's frustrating to me that this keeps being brought up when it couldn't be further from the truth. Donald Shively is not what's wrong with our system. He's what's right with our system. He has expressed regret for what happened 20 years ago, but yet there are those that continue to want to punish him for a mistake from 20 years ago, when without question this man has made up through his support, through his work to ensure that his students succeed. He has made up for that mistake. And Mr. President, I am sorry to stray from the purpose of this bill, but I felt I had to protect a man that I have so much respect for. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other members seeking recognition for the purpose of question or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Alvarado. Senator Berg.
Senator from Jefferson 26, please cast your vote, then explain, limited to 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I would like to explain my no vote. This is a very difficult subject for me because it is so very personal, and I find it so very frightening that I actually asked my colleagues to speak on my behalf today and chose not to speak. I understand that there is no ill intention behind this bill. And if this bill was purely a bill that said, you know what, we're going to go back to teaching civics and American history in our schools, which is something I support wholeheartedly and think that we have forgotten to teach for years and years, I would be in favor of this bill. But the problem with this bill is that it is an effort to appease. It is an effort to appease a segment of our population that is standing up and saying, I don't want my kids taught history the way history happened because it makes them feel bad, and I don't want them to feel bad, and I don't want them to feel like they have any collective responsibility. Even though it's a society, we all have collective responsibility, and if we're going to be a unified society, we are all going to accept that collective responsibility and deal with it and answer it the way we need to as a society. I don't understand how we can expect our children to interpret current affairs without teaching them the history of this country. How do you stand there and understand Wanda Cooper Jones and the victory that they just got on the federal level this week without knowing the story of Mamie Till and without understanding the hurt that our judicial system, the way we failed her? These are important questions. And my real concern is that you could have a parent who doesn't want their child taught history the way history was, who is a Holocaust denier, who is a true racist, who is a white supremacist, and believe me, they are all over this state at this point. And this bill appeases them. Thank you, but I vote no with every ounce of strength I have. Thank you.
Senator Carpenter. Senator Carroll. Senator Caslin. Senator Douglas. Senator Embry. Senator Girdler. Senator Givens. Senator Harper Angel.
Senator from Jefferson 35, please cast your vote, then explain.
I vote no, Mr. President. And as it's been said on the floor today, this legislature sets standards, not curriculum. Let our teachers teach without censorship. Let our history be taught as it is. And let our kids become critical thinkers on their own. I vote no.
Senator Higdon. Senator Hornback. Senator Howell. Senator Kerr. Senator McDaniel. Senator McGarvey. Senator Meredith. Senator Mills. Senator Neal. Senator Nemes. Senator Parrott. Senator Rocky Adams. Senator Schickel. Senator Schroeder. Senator Smith. Senator Southworth.
Senator from Anderson, please cast your vote, then explain. Limited to 3 minutes.
Cast an aye vote and explain, Mr. President.
Please proceed.
Mr. President, I love these times when we spend a lot of time discussing and debating because there's really no other opportunity where we get to hear all of our colleagues' different points of view, and the whole point of this body and the founders thought it was a great idea, and I think it is too, that we all come together and start rubbing on each other to get to the consensus that we need for the benefit of our constituents. But not everything gets said on the floor, and there's a lot of underlying things that are out there and they're not stated, and I want to state one of those right now. The academic standards, this bill specifically references our 6th through 12th grades. And if you look at the academic standards, which I pulled up since I had plenty of time here, I wanted to know exactly where we at on this. So I'm looking at grade number 5 here, standard, Kentucky Academic Standards. Describe the impact of foundational documents on the development of the United States. Founding documents, including but not limited to Declaration of Independence, U.S. Constitution, and Bill of Rights, established the United States government, presented the philosophical, traditional, political foundations on which the nation was built, and it goes on, right? In 8th grade, it says we are going to analyze and explain the origins, functions, and structure of government with reference to Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation, U.S. Constitution, Bill of Rights, and other founding documents and their impact on citizens. 5th grade is before this bill. 8th grade is covered in this bill. Mr. President, the reason why this bill is so important is because at no other time do we spend enough time going through those documents. This expands that list. It makes sure that it's